So good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for listening and following along with Trace Indy. I'm so excited. Today is Tiffany Benedict Browne. She's amazing. And we're going to talk about all things Historic Indianapolis. We're going to talk about all things, she's writing a book. We're going to talk about all things fashion and art. And we're all going to do it in a really, really nugget size. So Tiffany, thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm having you. Thank you. I'm really excited to talk to you. It's been a while, so.
I know. And so I have to, and I might highlight it later, like, full disclosure, your stuff with Historic Indianapolis is so cool. And we're doing a lot. My son goes to what would be considered like, it's an IPS school, but it's on a historic location. And I went down a deep dive on some of your work, and that gave me a lot of background for the building. And it's just so cool. So explain what you do. Like, what is it? And, with Historic Indy and what is it that you do?
Okay. So I do a few things, I guess, but I'm really have become a local historian of sorts. And that started when I moved to Indianapolis in 2003. My dream was to own a Victorian house. And so I got one in Heron Morton, and I didn't know anybody when I moved to Indianapolis. So my house kind of became my first friend. And so as we were getting to know each other, I just went down a rabbit hole of research. So I was researching my house, and then it was like, oh, this is the person next door. And then it was the block, and then it was the neighborhood, and then it was the city. And coming from California, I moved here from LA, and a lot of people were like, what's wrong with you? Why would you move to Indianapolis from LA? And I said, well, first of all, I was seduced by the wonderful real estate prices. But secondly, I love having four seasons. I love that this is a city that you can wrap your arms around. It's very welcoming, even though there are so many people that have grown up together and whatever. It seems like there's always room at the table for other people. And so I just love that about the city.
Yeah, as an expat, I completely agree with that. It takes a second sometimes to get in there,
right?
But once you're in, you are in. Now, can you explain yes, you wanted a Victorian house and the prices in Indy are awesome, but I'll admit, I moved here from Northern Virginia outside of DC, and there was a moment I was like, let me look this place up on a map. Where is this? Like, where did you just all of a sudden, I'm sure there are Victorian homes all over the country. So what brought you here? Yeah.
Okay. Well, so my mother was originally from Indianapolis. So I would come here in my childhood and visit my grandparents, who were very poor. They lived on the west side across from Central State Hospital.
Yeah.
Not great area. It was like, wow, we're on the news tonight, because there was something untoward going on down the street. But anyway, but my whole experience of Indianapolis, to be honest, was that and Lafayette Square Mall. That's like all I knew of this city, really. And then when my grandma was in the hospital when I was late 20s or something like that, I was near 30, and we went to St. Vincent's. I'm like, oh my God, they have a Trader Joe's here. Look at Indy, check you out. So yeah, it just felt like it was, I don't know, more than the experience I'd had as a child.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I agree. I love it. And to be honest, coming here, because I came in 01, and I came for a job, right? And so you kind of only see what you see, and then all of a sudden you get deeper and you fall down. The historical, only in the past couple years have I really kind of fallen down this rabbit holes of really enjoying the history of it. I want to talk about Historic Indianapolis. So if you have never gone, it's so cool. And I'm a big fan of people that write, like the cadence of the writing on the website is very conversational, right? And it's really easy to kind of get pulled in, and then it's like link, and then, but by the time I'm done, I have like 6 tabs open and I've read for an hour.
Right. I've definitely heard that.
Yeah. So how did it start?
So the way it started was I became the historian for Heron Morton, and at one point I was the association president. And I, at one point, was co-editor of the paper. This is before the Urban Times launched.
Okay.
And Bill Brooks was thinking about launching Urban Times because he already did newsletters for the Old North Side and Lockerbie Square. And he said, I'm thinking of doing this. Do you think Heron Morton would want to, be part of the original Urban Times? I said, yeah. So I contributed a couple of things, and then I said, oh, well, I do this one thing where I look up people's addresses within the confines of our neighborhood of 100 years ago. Like there was a society page. So it would tell you who was hosting what kind of club meeting at their house or something like that. I'm like, who doesn't want to see their address, up in the lights? And then I said, well, I could do it for all of the neighborhoods that you're doing. And I did that one time. And then he said, yeah, people really liked it, but I'm going to have a real historian come in and write for us, my friend Connie Ziegler. Yeah. And so I was kind of like, okay, all right, challenge accepted. So that's honestly how I ended up starting HI. It started on Blogspot. I just, at that point, it was like, oh, look at this really fun postcard. Isn't this neat? That's kind of how it started. And then from there, I was like, I really want to learn more. I want to know more. And I would just go down these rabbit holes, and I just wanted to share because I thought indie was so much cooler than anybody really gave it credit for.
Yeah.
And so it just kept expanding from there. I mean, that's really how it started.
That's so cool. Again, I have fallen down deep rabbit holes because so Henry's so for those that don't know, it's Cold Spring School. It's on Summers Mansion again, and we're doing some revitalization to some of the grounds the kids are. And so then fell down this rabbit hole and then learned about car manufacturers in that whole mansion row, and then fell down deeper and realized there was an explosion at the Coliseum in '63, like all these things I didn't know. And then again, an hour and a half later, I'm like, I should probably do my job. I'm bringing it back. So you've been doing HI, which is so cool. Tell us how that might have triggered you, or what did trigger you to write this, working on this book on Indianapolis bicycle history, which I know a lot of people are very excited about.
Oh my God, I'm excited about it. I'm so excited about it. I have so much fun working on this book. Now it is taking way, 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 way longer than I ever would have thought, because I don't know. I mean, if you say Indianapolis bicycle history, I mean, do you really think that's something that is going to take a lifetime to do? It doesn't sound that huge. It actually sounds like you've really got a niche thing there. And I am telling you, I did research for fully 3.5 years, started working on the writing about 6 months ago, but there's always more research that keeps coming up because I'll come across something else and I have to go down a rabbit hole and do some more research and some more research. So long story short, it's at least another year and a half, 2 years away, because we're not even talking about editing or, all the other things that come after you've got your draft in good shape. So the way that it happened was I obviously have spent a lot of time at the State Library, found a really fun publication called The Indiana Woman. And actually there is, I think I could even hunt down the link if you want it.
Yeah.
The Indianapolis Public Library has a few of these online. It was a publication called The Indiana Woman, and it was called Indiana Illustrated. They changed their name a few times, but just a beautiful little publication that was a weekly publication. Lots of photos of old homes of Indianapolis, of people. And then it had a little society page. And then at one point they had a page that was all about bicycles. And it wasn't all it was essentially Mrs. Charles Warren Fairbanks is now riding a Waverly bicycle. And you're like, this is something noteworthy at the time. This is, it just intrigued me. And it talked about the cycle path that was here. And then, when the cultural trail came out, I'm like, oh my gosh, we already had a trail before. I wonder how these things match up, etc. And so long story short, I just thought, if I ever write a book, I have got to go further down this rabbit hole and check this thing out. And so that's really how it started.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So with historical and with the bike. So is that where you got your love? Because you have the best fashion. If y'all don't follow Tiffany on Instagram, you're missing out, because it is it's such a joy. It's so fun. Every once in a while I'm like, I could wear a hat like that. I could do that. But where did that love come from? Because it's all kind of interconnected to me.
I'm so glad that you say that, because I'm like,
Yeah.
do I look totally spastic that I'm like, over here I love this and over here I love that? I mean,
No.
not that it matters, but yeah, you love what you love. But no, I have loved fashion my whole life. I think it was because I was an only child and I had like a killer Barbie collection. And so honestly, one of my favorite things to do was to style my Barbie. And so now I'm like, I get to be the Barbie.
Yeah.
Now I don't have her kind of
No one does.
stature, who does, because it's not normal. Let's just say that. And, of course, I have more mixed feelings about Barbie these days now that we're more enlightened. But that is where it really started. And I used to wear only vintage clothes.
Yeah.
Until a few years ago, but it just got to the point where dry cleaners were ruining things. It's these are antiques that I'm wearing, right? So it might rip. You can't fix it. So basically, I don't wear the vintage very much, but I still love vintage silhouettes and things like that. So
I love it. Well, your outfit for Zubilation this past weekend,
oh, you're so sweet,
was awesome. But I really like, because you also, you really encourage up and coming designers. Like, some of the things that you wear are designer pieces from, I think the UK for Zubilation, but you've done local and really supporting that as well. And I just think that's so cool. Again, bringing it back to where we live. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. So where, I got to always book in these questions, because, it can't always be a straight trajectory, but where have you found, whether it's the book or the pandemic or, whatever that means to you, some struggle, but then I want you to bookend it with a high note.
Oh, struggle. And okay. Well, my biggest struggle in the past year was I had a frozen shoulder, which, since this is more ladies audience, just FYI, they said women have a much higher propensity to have that happen as we're going through changes.
Yep.
And the fact that I will sit and type for literally 13, 14 hours, as I'm sure you can relate to that as well. So anything where you're not, moving and whatever, I still have a little hitch in my giddy up here. I cannot get my arm all the way up. So that was a little bit of a struggle. And I will tell you, as joyful as the research is, and that is my favorite part of the book, it's also a struggle, because you're there like, oh my God, is this going to be good enough? Oh my God, I know other historians that just love to be like, excuse me, you forgot, and it's like, okay, well, I'm looking forward to your book. And then you can just set the record straight if that's what
back to that real historian.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly. Because I don't have, a master's in history. I'm self-taught, but I'm so passionate about it. And, and that is part of my joy. So the things that have helped me make it through, my dogs, for sure. I have 2 little teacup Pomeranians that
I was kind of hoping they would sprinkle in at some point, but
I was hoping to, but my one little guy has seizures and he takes a medicine that kind of knocks him out in the morning. So he's and then my other one is a little antisocial sometimes, but they are just my joy. I love them so much. My husband is great and he's so supportive, and obviously my friends. But then for me, like you're saying, the thing, it's really sweet to hear that you like the clothes. I just started sharing that more because it was something that did give me joy, because I was like, oh my God, do I look like some jackass where I'm like, putting my clothes out there all the time or whatever. And I'm like, this is so fun. This is like my kind of painting. It's my art.
I love it. Again, as those who have watched these know, I wear denim, black, and white. So I'm working on it. Like, I got new glasses, like working on it. So I love it so much, because it's something I think that a lot of us can kind of work on in the being out loud, right? Just living out loud.
For sure. And let me give a shout out to my friend Jody Ford, because she actually, so I have always had vintage hats and things like that, but because I wore all vintage clothes, I didn't want to look like I was costumed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to wear a vintage hat and I'm going to wear a vintage dress and vintage this. I prefer to like make it my own and mix things up a little bit. And so now that I wear new clothes, I felt like I could wear hats. And Jody was, the one that was like, wear the hat, because you just feel a little strange if you're the only one wearing a hat. Well, I don't anymore. I'm like, to hell with it. I am embracing it. I love wearing hats. They're just fun.
They're fun.
Yeah. So I think embracing and people will always say, well, you're lucky you can wear a hat. Like anybody can wear a hat. You just have to feel comfortable in it. If you're there like, oh God, do I look crazy? Do I look weird? Is this all right? Then of course you're not going to feel or look good. But if you put that sucker on, you're like, I look fierce and bye, I'm going out, that's all that matters. It's how you feel.
Oh, I love that. So many people can relate with that. So maybe that'll tie us right into the next question of, how can the community show up, whether that's individually just living out loud, but what does that mean for you? Like, how can the community, our community stand up?
I definitely think kind of what you just said. I think that we should care less about like, does this work? Does this fit in? Does this whatever? And really look for yourself at, does this work for me? And how do I feel? Because we've all tried on something that maybe it looks a little over the top, for example, but we're like, oh my God, this fabric or this color, I just love it. But oh gosh, I don't have anywhere to wear it. Wear it to the damn grocery store, okay? Like, I don't care. And especially after the pandemic, everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is why the roaring 20s were the way they were. Let's do that, people. Let's start a movement. Let's wear your sequins to the grocery store. Yes. I'll meet you there.
I love that so much. So much. I'll do better than just the white, but I need to work on it.
But if that's what makes you happy, you know.
I know. I'm working on some flair. So, okay. Big question, right? So how, Tiffany Benedict Browne, are you leaving your trace?
I think it really is going to be through my work.
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about what I do, about telling these stories. And, I love when people say something like what you said, like, oh, I went down this rabbit hole. I had a wonderful story where a lady wrote me and said, my father was in the hospital dying. He couldn't really do anything because he couldn't see, he had some impaired eyesight. And I somehow brought up a conversation of some story that I saw on HI, and I read it to him, and it opened up a conversation and a dialogue with my dad that we never would have had otherwise. And I just cannot tell you how that makes my heart sing. And just allowing other people to find connections. So as I'm writing this book, I'm really trying to figure out the balance of the story, but also including everybody that I can, because I want to mention every name, because if that's somebody's grandpa, I want them to know your grandpa was part of this. Like, I want to include as many people as possible and let them know that they're connected to the story. And I guess that's really what everything I do is about, is I want more connection. And I just find such deep and beautiful connection through the research that I do. As I walk around Indianapolis, I don't just see what I see. I see what was there. I know the stories of guys who, did this over here, did that over there. And it just makes my life richer, and it makes me feel more connected. And so I have that wish for everybody, that they feel that connected and where they are.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so good. I mean, you have also said, which I'm going to read, one of your favorite quotes is also, may I leave my corner of the world better than I found it. Yeah. And that is totally what you're doing. And I'm so grateful for your time and sharing your story and your words and our history. And I don't care if it's a year or two from now, we're going to circle back and we're going to talk about this book, because it's going to be so good.
It is going to be so good. I mean,
so good.
I'm going to toot my own horn. It's going to be good. I'm so excited.
More women need to do that. Tiffany, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.